Hi Selma, here's the feedback for the reading part of the mock exam that you did recently. And for question 1 you got the full 4 marks, so that's a good start, well done. Moving on to question 2, where you're asked to analyse the language used to describe the effects of the storm. You make a very good start saying the writer uses emotive language when describing the storm and how it affects him and around. And you've listed some words here: noise, furious and bad dream. You go on to say, we understand that the storm affected his dream and he dreamt badly. And then the writer uses personification to describe the storm and its power and effect, like the furious waves. And the use of the noun noise, it's clear that the storm is affecting the trees. The use of the verb lashing the trees explains how the storm is strong. And spilling, the verb, explains that the storm not only affects the trees but also affects the Pacific Ocean as well. So all this is good, and if we look at the mark scheme, we get the right one. So here, attempts to comment on the effect of the language. Well, you've done a bit of it. You've said it's affecting the trees, and it shows that it's affecting the Pacific Ocean as well. Select some appropriate textual detail where you've done that, and make some use of subject terminology mainly appropriate when you've done that. So I'd say it's definitely in level 2. I think what would have got it a little bit higher was if you'd have given a bit more detail about the effects. So the fact that the wind is lashing the trees, it makes it sound as though it's whipping the trees around and beating them onto the ground. And the furious waves makes it sound like the waves are angry and aggressive and are really hurling themselves onto the ground. So you need to give a little bit more of that effect, not just that it's affecting the sea and the trees and the land, but what effect are those words creating in you, the reader? What's it making you picture? Can you see the trees being whipped around and the furious waves crashing onto the ground? That's the kind of thing that you need to be looking for to be getting up into those higher marks. And then you've gone on to say we can say when the storm calms down, he will calm down. And the writer makes a connection between Alexander and the storm, which is very perceptive. You've said the writer uses compound sentences for describing the storm. So the use of and repetition of and tries to convey and make a list of storm effects. That's a good point. So rain on the rooftops and thunder. And then the use of some short, simple sentences convey the stress and negative atmosphere that Alexis has, and what awakened him was the noise from the storm. So I think some of this last bit here, where you've given a little bit more depth to your analysis, has made it creep up into level 3. So it's 5 out of the possible 8 marks for that question. As I said, if you just developed some of your effect up here, you would have scored even higher. So you're doing really well with these questions. Well done. Moving on to question 3, where you've been asked to look at how the text is structured to interest you as a reader. You start off with saying that the writer begins with Alexander's dream. Now here you're talking a little bit about the language, which is not necessary. That was in the previous question. You've said the noun, the nightmare. But then there's a bit of structure in here. So then the writer moves from Alexander's dream to the storm and describes the storm with emotive language that makes a connection with the bad dream and the storm and his mum. And then I suppose it's a bit of link in here where you're saying, as readers, we understand why he feels bad and dreams badly about his mum. And then you talk about the dialogue with this family. Mum is going to die. And you say we're made to question what will life be like without the mum. And you see, it gives details about the children's feelings, and we understand that they're not ready for her to die. So the writer moves and focuses on their life after mother. Instead of homemade foods, they are eating pizza and Chinese food. And then the last paragraph, we can feel and understand about his feelings and that he suffers from the absence of his mum. painful her absence, which makes us cry, and the repetition of missed. He missed her music, flowers, smell, paint, tell. How hard it is for someone who's lost a mum. I think you've gone off a little bit here, just kind of telling the story rather than talking about the structure. So again, if we look at the mark scheme for this question, so for level 2, attempts to comment on the effect of the structural features. Well, you have commented on the effects. You said how it makes us feel. And Peter says, we understand why he feels bad and dreamt badly. And we want to read on and see what's their life going to be like without the mum. And that we understand that they're not ready for her to die. And in the last paragraph, we can feel and understand about his feelings. So yes, you have done that. You selected some quotes, possibly a few more would have benefited, and make some use of subject terminology, mainly appropriately. So for this question, the terminology is some of the words that you've used. So it begins, and then moves from Alexander's dream to the storm. The writer gives us details. Writer moves and focuses on their life after the mother, and the last paragraph. So you have used some of the terminology. So looking at the mark scheme there, you've met all of those. So if we just have a look here. I think I've given you 5 out of the possible 8 because I think some of your explanations are quite perceptive. You just need to make it a little bit clearer about the structure that it's you're writing about. So you could say the fact that the first part of it focuses just on Alex and his dream and the bird, and then in the second half we are introduced to his family. You could have said that in the very first sentence we learn the who, where and when, because we find out that it's Alex, he's in bed and it's dawn. So there's a few more things that you could have said about the structure which would have got you those marks. But again, 5 out of 8 is not a bad score. And now moving on to question 4, where you've been asked to what extent you would agree with the student that says this part of the story set during breakfast time shows that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. And you said that you agree that he is struggling. You've gone to say he's really struggling to cope with his mother's illness because he has siblings and he's the bigger one and needs to take responsibility, calm down the little ones. And you give the quote, shut up Nicole, you're just kids. He struggles to tell the truth about his mother's illness, which is a good point. He's angry with his father. Who's he angry? Life in general, and even with his mother for getting sick. So angry and even, the words we understand that he shows he's struggling to cope. He rushed out of the kitchen without breakfast, can't control his feelings, and is really afraid for his mother's sickness. He's afraid to lose her and knows she's going to die. So the verb missed tells us about his feelings and how hard it is for him. He missed even her discipline. He wants his mum back, and the discipline, stricter, are better than her absences. We understand that he misses mum's bad and good things and makes some upset. Repetition of miss explains how he struggled without his mum, and the description of the house and the noun ghost tells us his mum is everywhere for him and he sees everything from his mum. The adjectives of smell of paint, freshly baked cookies, made an image for us about his mum. So you've made some very good points there, and if we look at the mark scheme for this question, make some evaluative comments on the effect of the reader. When you've done that, here you said it makes an image for us about his mum, tells us his mum is everywhere for him and sees everything from his mum. So you've done that throughout. Show some understanding of writer's methods. Now this is a point that quite a few people have not picked up on, but I'm pleased to say that you have. So you've said here where angry and even are words we understand to show that he's struggling to cope. And then the verb missed tells us about his feelings and how hard it is for him. He missed even the discipline. So we understand that he missed the good and the bad things. Repetition of miss explains how he struggled without his mum, and the description of the house and the noun ghost tells us his mum is everywhere. So you've made a really good attempt at that. Select some appropriate textual references. Again, you've done that, and you have made some response to the focus of the statement all the way through. You've mentioned that it shows that he is struggling. So I think it's 10 out of the possible 20 marks for this question. So that's a really, really good score, Selma. Well done. I think if you'd have, again, a little bit more depth into your explanation. So if you'd have said something like, he's angry with everyone, the quote that you've used, and this suggests that he's desperately looking for someone to blame and isn't dealing with the situation very well at all. And the writer uses a dialogue between Alex and his sisters when he snaps at his sisters rather than trying to reassure them like an older brother. It shows Alex isn't coping by comparing his mother, what she used to be like before she became ill, to what she's like now. And the metaphor, little more than a silent ghost, suggests that she's become an invisible presence in the life of the family. So you've mentioned all the key points in there, just needed to add a little bit more depth to your analysis. But as I said, 10 out of 20 is an excellent score for this question, and overall that gives you 24 out of the possible 40 marks, which is a brilliant score, Selma. I'm really pleased for you and well done.